Hello, welcome to AI in Action. My name is Maurie and I'm here with my husband Jim. It is Sunday afternoon and we are doing what we always do. We're sitting down and we're talking about artificial intelligence. Now, yes, we do talk about it a lot during the week, but this is the time that I'm like, okay, Jim, you got 30 minutes. Let's do a core dump. Tell me all the new things that you learned this week, and I'll tell you all the new things that I did this week. And we're just going to catch up and we're going to keep our audience kind of in the loop as to what's going on. So today we're actually going to hit some news headlines, but then we're going to go a bit deeper into a topic that we talk about a lot, which is basically with artificial intelligence and everything out there, how are we going to keep the human in the loop? What does it mean to be a human in the world that's filled with artificial intelligence? So, Jim, let's talk just a little bit about the headlines because there are some kind of, interesting things that have been going on out there. Of course, the big thing for me is that as soon as Google does something, the next day, OpenAI has to one up Google. And
either the day before or the day after. But it's like they always know that Google's going to do something, so they have to one up them. They have a little reserve of like unreleased stuff that they keep, just so they can throw one out there every time Google does.
Well, they got to be in the headlines. I mean, they have to be like the top dog in the headlines. And I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, and let's face it, right now LinkedIn is all about those images. I mean, it's
that's
everywhere.
The first headline. The first headline is about OpenAI's new image generation capability. They've had image generation for a long time. When they released DALL-E back in December of 2022, I think, was when Jared and I first started playing with DALL-E, and it was kind of lame, but it was cool. But the one they just released it went crazy. As a matter of fact, Sam Altman said, would people please stop using the AI generation so much? People would like to go to sleep, and they're catching our GPUs on fire, basically, figuratively speaking.
It was really slow. I mean, there was, I was trying to get some stuff done, and that was not image generation, and it was a little slow to be on OpenAI.
Luckily, they seem to give priority to premium, like pro users, and I'm still temporarily a pro user, so mine didn't really slow down much, but they made it available for pro, which is the $200 a month people. And they made it available for premium, which is $20. They were going to make it available in limited amounts to the free version, but they basically said, we don't have the capacity.
Yeah.
So, sorry, the free people don't get access right now. I think it was also in the United States only, too. I don't think you can do it overseas.
The U.S. grid would collapse if they released it to everybody.
Yeah, probably. The thing that I thought was interesting, this is what I learned. I didn't know. There's a thing called Ghibli, which I'm told is pronounced Ghibli.
Okay.
I did not know that was an image format. I gave you a little blurb in the notes that I gave you because I wanted to explain what the heck it is. So I'll let you explain what Ghibli is for people who don't know, like me.
Well, I mean, first of all, I've heard of Ghibli before because our kids talk about it. I mean, our kids, it's basically... Yeah, it's there's a Japanese gentleman. Rachel was just telling me the other day that he's like 87 years old.
Hayao Miyazaki? I can't pronounce his name.
And he steps back. It's a type of Japanese animation. It's like an animated film, okay?
Yeah.
And it's the studio. So, I mean, he founded it like 1985. He's actually tried to step back from it several times and like let his son take over and do some other things. And he keeps getting back into it. He's kind of like the guy that's like, nope, not good enough. Nope, not good enough. And so he comes back all the time. But I mean, the kids love it.
So
kids love it.
I left you some notes there about because everybody's generating. They take the picture of themselves,
right,
and they generate a Ghibli version of it. So what does that mean?
Well, I'll read the notes, and I don't have my glasses on, so I'm going to lean forward. So hopefully you guys, see all my gray hair up here. So it is a Arabic word for hot desert wind. He chose it because he loves airplanes, and the studio's name was also the nickname of the Italian
Caproni.
Caproni.
What's interesting to me is the description of the actual image type. Very watercolor in texture.
With a pastel palette.
I don't know what that means.
Pastels are like the lighter colors, the light blues and the light pinks and
Warm,
the,
soft colored environments,
right,
coziness. Those are
right.
all the sense of coziness, cut in with bright, bold colors. These are all the descriptions that Google gave me of that type of what the image, I guess what the films are
Right.
when they make the Japanese
People say
films.
that they watch them because they're like so calming.
I think
I mean,
Matthew said that.
yes, and even the voices and everything that are in them are just so like
Soft.
relaxing and soft and calming. And
Sense
so,
of coziness was one of the descriptions Google gave of it.
yeah, yeah. So,
So now we have images that are soft pastels, watercolor, flooding the internet.
well, and I have seen not just these images. I've seen the Minecraft ones
Those are
and the
fun.
anime
Those I
ones
get.
and the Bart Simpson style. Yeah, so I mean they're everywhere. They're out there and they're
They're on
everywhere.
LinkedIn, they're on Instagram,
Hopefully,
they're on.
hopefully people will get a little bit tired of it after a little while.
I'm
And
already tired of it.
now I have seen some other really cool stuff. I've seen somebody came out with like posters for classrooms is a big one where they're doing like educational posters. Um, they're still not perfect, but they're there. I've also
Text
seen
is
some
better.
people, yeah, text is a lot better. I mean,
Yes.
the wording that is on there is a lot better. So to me, that's huge because I do a lot of PowerPoint presentations or, Canva presentations. And if I
Hmm.
could come up with an image and actually put the headline on the image instead of having to drop it in and then edit the image, that's going to be huge for me. So yeah, I mean, it's a great thing. Let's go on to
Okay.
the next one.
Yeah, that
The
one
other
is.
big news,
Yeah, that one's kind of.
well, this is a shell game.
It's like a billionaire shell game or a corporate. It's a corporate shell game too. Sell one company to the other, kind of like what
Right.
Alphabet did when Google became Alphabet, Facebook became Meta. Now,
Yeah, Elon Musk, he has sold X to his XAI, which is his AI
it's
company.
got a thing about X's. That's a
I,
weird
yeah.
obsession.
So, he bought X
For
with stock, like borrowing against his stock that he had
yeah,
in Tesla.
that's what we heard.
Okay. That's what I heard too. And now,
Elon and I haven't gotten together recently, so I'm not sure that's what he did, but that's what I
not
heard.
100% sure, but that's what the news said he did. And
Hmm.
now with the stock prices of Tesla just like in the toilet,
Well, they're
um,
down. They're still there, but I mean, he's still got money in
they're a
it. But
lot less than what they were.
true, and maybe people are, and there's a lot of things going on with Tesla right now that probably make the people that loan the money to him against Tesla stock go, maybe we need to start getting some money back from that. So the
Hmm.
safest thing for him to do, because he really doesn't want to lose X, is to move it over to his other company, which is what he
Right.
did.
What interests me about this is the information.
The
Okay.
information.
The
Oh, the fact that,
information.
well,
X
because X is Twitter,
is Twitter,
and
and
he's
there's
already using his
lots.
XAI.
Right. So the information that he basically just took the XAI and the X and he puts them together, and then it's like, okay, now that I own it, I own all the information. So it's like
Well,
almost like a legality to where he's like now has access to all of
Well,
it.
he had access to it anyway, but it probably makes the paperwork easier because there's probably something in there.
Legality.
There's probably something in their terms and conditions that says they won't share your information with other companies. Well, now
Right.
they're not. Now it's the same company. So you're probably
Right.
right about that. It probably had some. I didn't even think about that. It probably had something to do with that too. So anyway, so last on the list of headlines that I thought was interesting is that um, the Google model itself, I mean, it got pushed aside by the image generation pretty badly, but it's got a million token context window. I think Google's talked about that before, but I don't know if they ever actually had it. For those who don't know, that's about 750,000 words. And if it can legitimately take in that many and not lose context and use that, that is large, large, large numbers. And when you start talking
Hmm.
about writing code, that means you can take an entire code base and put it in there. You can take entire novels and put it in there and use it as context. So it's a big deal. The other big deal about it was that it was fast. It
Yeah.
is fast. The problem I had with it, I was using it. I've always I always give Google a shot, and I tried it, and it seemed okay for a minute. Even did some decent image generation because they did some updates on that, but it got hung. I mean, it just stuck, and I don't know what
Is it
happened.
because everyone was using it?
I don't know. I mean, Google's got so many servers, I would think it would matter. I mean, Google's the biggest server farms on the planet. My thing
I
about
like
Google is
I
that
like your premise. I like your premise. We were talking about this,
hmm,
yes, because we do talk about AI other than just Sundays. We were
hmm,
talking about this, what, yesterday, day before,
hmm.
where I was like, Google is going to own it eventually, but
They
I
have all
think
the data,
they have all the data, and I think that
except
they're
what
getting a
Elon bought
little.
from the government.
We're not going to talk politics.
Oh,
Um, they have all the data, and I think eventually they're going to say, you know what, I, we're just going to give it away.
that's what they did. That's how they own the education
It,
space.
we're tired of OpenAI always just jump. It's almost like they have, I don't know, some insiders or something to where like
Of course
the
they do.
OpenAI is ready. The day after Google does something big, OpenAI is like,
Or
I've
the
got
day
something
before.
bigger.
That's the big
Or
thing.
let's put something shiny out there real quick so that people will get distracted.
Yeah.
And so I think eventually Google's going to say, you know what? We're just going to give everything away for free for a certain period of time, especially in like certain sectors, and then
Like
everyone's going to
education.
get like an education, and then everyone's going to start using it because it's free. It's not $20 a month. It's not $200 a month, and they're going to get hooked on it. They're going to have everything wrapped up in it,
If I
and
was Google,
then they'll start charging.
as it gets cheaper for them to run the AIs, which is what they're working on, because it takes GPUs no matter what. As they get, they make their own GPUs that they use. They've used it for a long time. They're called, I think they use TPUs, tensor processing units. But
Hmm.
anyway, Google it was great for Google when they started giving away stuff to education, because the
Yeah,
entire education is always underfunded. The entire education space switched almost, it felt like overnight. I mean, I remember when I was piloting their stuff not 8, 9 years ago, when we were looking at Chromebooks, Google had a very small percentage. We didn't have hardly any Chromebooks. As a matter of fact, we
yeah.
had none because I was piloting them. Now we have more Chromebooks by a factor of 2 or 3 to 1 over everything else. We've almost gotten rid of everything Windows.
Well,
And
the
that's
other
because it's
thing,
so much, the Chromebooks are cheap, the hardware is cheap. They gave us free access to their admin consoles and all that, and their email and and they gave us huge amounts of storage and do
okay,
the same thing.
so I'm going to say that that's also really great marketing on their part because, first of all, it's benevolent and they can like advertise the heck out of that. And second of all, we are educating the future. And so when people get out of K-12 education and go into the real world, they're going to be Google. I mean,
Well, they're certainly going to know it. I mean, Microsoft owns the enterprise space, but if these small startups that eventually become bigger companies,
right,
the people that are starting the company, if they're using all the free Google tools,
they'll
and
go buy
instead of
the
Office
enterprise tools.
365, then they'll use the enterprise tools as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I have said this forever. If you start it in education, Apple did it. Apple was one of the first ones in education. They gave huge discounts for education. They owned the space for years. The
Mm-hmm.
Apple IIe's were in education. That was a big deal. They sold lots of them. Microsoft has never done a great job. They've never cared about education much. They still don't.
Yeah.
But Google, well, first of all, Google already has great products in AI. That's what bothers me. They have Notebook LM, which is
Yes.
actually extremely cool.
Amazing.
They have
Amazing.
the Gemini is not horrible. It's getting better, but not horrible is not really the description you want of your product. And then they've got AI Studio, which is another development tool, which is actually very useful. Their coding is getting better. They own their GPUs. They have so many servers you can't even count. I don't. They just have the worst marketing people. I mean,
Right.
it's like the old saying, a confused consumer never buys.
Right.
No, half the time I don't know exactly how to use the Google tools. I'm like, okay, is that in Studio or is that in Notebook LM or do I have to use the Gemini? You had this problem at school where we have paid
Mm-hmm.
subscriptions. You couldn't figure out how to get somebody access to one of the video
Well, we wanted to
conferencing things,
record. Yeah, he needed to record it,
and you weren't sure if you
and
had to have a Gemini license or something else to do it.
right, and come to find out, it's like a really weird offshoot of a
I
license
know.
that I need.
Confused
So
consumer never
it
buys.
is confusing. Okay, so let's start going a little deeper because I don't know how much time we have left.
We have 15, 16 minutes, a little
Okay,
less.
so about 15 minutes left. Let's go ahead and start taking that deeper dive that you kind of wanted us to take. I know that you kind of wanted to grill me just a little bit. I'm
Yeah,
probably going to get into an argument. Very surprising.
Okay, well,
So,
let's go through the headlines first.
all
Let
right,
me go. Let
there's
me go through the headlines first, and then
three
we'll.
headlines, three
There
headlines
is, and they
that we're
are
going to talk about.
related, believe it or not.
Okay.
One of them is People Magazine. Bill Gates says, we're going to go through these, by the way, and then we'll talk a little bit more about what all this means, how this fits
All right.
together.
It's all
Bill
you.
Gates says AI will replace doctors, teachers, and more in the next 10 years, making humans unnecessary for most things. That was
Ooh.
Bill's out pushing his, I guess he's got a new memoir called Source Code, which is really not very original name. I tend to like Bill Gates, some of his stuff he does, but that one's kind of lame. Anyway, so the Microsoft co-founder said that the increased role of AI humans will not be needed for most things, and what I thought was a really big statement he made out of that, he remains optimistic about the future of AI, however, especially with regards to health and climate.
Okay.
Okay, optimistic. Now maybe Bill and I have a different definition of optimism.
Could be.
Because last time I checked, groceries, water, rent, they aren't free. And if AI is going to do everything, anyway, I don't really see how you pay your
How
bills.
are humans going to make money?
Yeah, but we'll continue. From Southern Living, 12 things to do in Wimberley, Texas. Now, Wimberley, Texas is about 50 minutes southwest of Austin, an hour northeast of San Antonio. I think Rachel spent her wedding night in Wimberley, Texas, if I
Right.
remember
She
right.
did a little mini honeymoon before they went on their big honeymoon. Yeah.
Well, the interesting part of that particular article was that artists make up a disproportionate faction of that town. It's about 3,000 people. Apparently, there's a lot of artists there. They've got wildflower galleries. They got a boot whisperer named Uli Johnston. Apparently, she is German. I think she's from Fredericksburg. But anyway, she's the boot whisperer. You can walk in, she can look at your feet and tell you what you need.
Okay.
The last one, TechCrunch. Open source developers are fighting AI crawlers with cleverness and vengeance.
Okay.
Basically, open source developers are people who develop a lot of. We use it at the school. We use open source is in everything. I mean, it's so much with Linux and things that it's crazy how much people use it. Well, they're supposed to. All these crawlers out there have always had a kind of a handshake agreement. There's a thing called robot.txt file. You put it on your website. That tells the crawlers they're not supposed to crawl that site. And everybody's done okay with that until the AI stuff came along. Well, they're not only crawling it, but to quote one of these guys, he said that the guy that was complaining about it, he said the Amazon bot relentlessly pounded on his Git server, which is where he puts this free software that he's working on, to the point of it causing a denial of service outage. Basically, it was hitting a server so hard his server became unusable. Now, these people, they're doing this stuff for free. They don't have a lot of resources. They can't fight all this stuff. They're hosting their own servers. So they came out with a piece of software called Anubis, which I've heard of Anubis, but I didn't. Apparently, Anubis was the one who decided if you were going to go to heaven or you were going to be eliminated forever.
Okay.
Basically,
I've heard Anubis in like movies that we've watched.
So what they're doing now is they have a thing that gives you a challenge to determine if you're human. So it's a human test, and if you pass, then Anubis grants you entry into the website, just like Anubis gave you, to the next life. So again, this is a way to prove you're human. So the question, what does it mean to be human in a world of AI? The billionaires have made it clear that they want to replace humans with AI. Bill Gates just said that. They also made it clear that they don't want to implement a universal basic income, which is UBI, because they said everybody will get lazy and that's communism, socialism, whatever. So there's a problem with this theory.
Yeah,
If
I don't think this adds up.
If no one's working, first of all, where these billionaires got to sell their products and services and stuff that's making all this money for them, they got to sell it to somebody. And if no one can afford to buy anything, like Henry Ford said, if I'm making automobiles that the people who work for me can't afford to buy, then who am I going to sell them to?
Right. So, and I mean, even Sam Walton, the guy who started Walmart, I mean, he is very famous for saying, if you make a product and you sell it to the rich or the top 1% or whatever, then you live with the poor. But if you make a product and you sell it to the poor, then you live with the rich.
That wasn't Sam Walton, by the way.
Oh, it wasn't? Who was that?
That was the guy that started at Amway.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember his name, though.
I don't either.
Sell to the rich, live with the masses. Sell to the
But
masses, live with the rich.
but isn't that kind of what Sam Walton decided
Absolutely.
with Walmart?
That's what he did
I
with
remember him
Walmart.
saying that, so
He
I have
probably
heard him
repeated it.
say that before.
He
Okay,
probably repeated it.
so make sure the person gets the credit where the credit is due. I
Well,
appreciate
make sure
that.
I'm right. I could be wrong. But so start with teachers. What is the value add that teachers actually bring to a classroom or whatever? What value do humans bring to anything we do? That was the question that I wanted to answer, and I'm going to go first.
Okay.
I genuinely like writing and speaking. I do. You and I do it all the time. I write stuff, and I even ask you, you didn't write that with AI, did you? And because you and I write most of our, we don't, I mean, you can tell by our podcast, we don't use AI to script anything, but when we do, I like doing it. And therefore I use AI to help me clean it up because I had a teacher who told me in middle school when I was in UIL Ready writing, she said, your thoughts just flow. They're wonderful, but you don't use any grammar rules. So you get diarrhea of the pen is what she told me, which you're not allowed to say that anymore, apparently. But I wasn't very good at grammar rules.
No, you're still not. You're still
and
not.
so AI helps with the grammar, but I still enjoy the flow, the writing, and all that other stuff. So if I could make a living writing and speaking and to people, then I would be very happy with that.
Mhm.
So to me, because I'm adding the human value to it, excluding grammar rules, and if I could get somebody to sponsor our podcasts or buy more of our professional development, I'd be able to retire from the school, and that's all I would do, and I would enjoy it.
Okay.
So your turn. You've worked as a teacher and you've worked in a medical office. So we're going to start with a teacher.
Oh, I've done both.
You have?
Yeah,
So
I have. I've done both.
what does it mean to be a teacher and not a guide or a certified teacher? What is the value add going to be in your mind in the world of AI?
Okay. So teachers are trained typically in a subject material. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like for instance, the AI, and you and I were just talking about this, the AI generated a poster of the water cycle. And someone posted it on LinkedIn, and it was a really great poster. And then very quickly, we realized that precipitation and evaporation were flipped. So precipitation was below evaporation instead of precipitation being in the cloud. It made an error. And so teachers are going to have to continually check to make sure that the AI is giving the correct information because it does give errors.
Can I add something to that?
Mm-hmm.
So basically you're saying that teachers, part of what they're doing is teaching digital literacy and critical thinking about what they're getting from the AI. Because AI, if it's just an error, the AI can correct it eventually. I mean, what do you tell me all the time? Today's AI is the worst AI you'll ever use.
Ethan Mollick.
It's getting better all the time. The image generation stuff is getting less and less errors in the text, so it's getting better. So if your argument is that they're an error, a fact checker, well, fact checkers, I don't need a teacher for that forever.
Well, one of the things that they quickly started pointing out about that poster is leave it wrong. Leave the poster wrong and then challenge the students
to find the errors.
Find the errors.
Critical thinking.
Critical thinking, figure it out. Vet your sources, make sure it's right.
Okay.
But then I'm going to go ahead and get onto my training. When teachers go through training, yes, I have a master's in counseling, but teachers also have to have trainings on how to handle that social emotional learning part of a student. They have to, and guides don't have that. Guides don't go through hours and hours and hours of training for like 20 hours for gifted and talented, 6 additional hours of continuing education every single year for gifted and talented. You have to go through like CPS training. You have to go through, there's all of this stuff that you have to go through. No.
I want to interrupt you for 1 second. I want to interrupt you for 1 second. Guides, for those who don't know what that means, we're actually poking a little bit of fun at this school in Austin. It's an all AI school. They have 2 hours a day. They work with the AI, the kids do. They were bragging about their test scores or something the other day, but they don't call their teachers. They call them guides, which annoys me. So, and they don't have to be certified if you call them guides. So continue.
Right. So on my high horse, a human, a teacher knows when their student walks in the classroom, first of all, who the student is, what the student's family life is like. What they can read immediately. Is this kid going to be in a good mood? Is this kid going to be in a bad mood? Is it today the day that I need to introduce something new to this student? Is today, and so do I need to differentiate? Is the kid a little hyper today? Is the kid not on their meds today? Do I, they understand the human that makes up the student. And I don't think that an AI is anytime soon going to be able to read that level of what the human in the student is.
You know why I think you're right?
Why?
One of the reasons I think you're right, for a couple of reasons actually. But I think people forget the fundamentals of what to say what does it mean to be human means you're literally saying that you as a teacher are adapting to the changing definition of being human.
Immediately.
AI can absorb human written text, it can watch videos, it can do all kinds of stuff. But who decides whether or not a video is good or bad? Who decides what the latest art? Remember we mentioned art a little bit earlier, the humans doing art like in Wimberley, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Even what makes art beautiful or not, that the human decides the definition of beauty. If we start letting AI decide what beauty is, then we have lost what it is to be human. So I agree with you. I think the teachers bring all of that. Now, we're going to run out of time, so I want to skip to the doctor's office.
But hold on, hang on, real quick. I just want you to say one more time, I agree with you.
I agree with you.
Thank you.
It happens. All right, so quickly, because there's a little conclusion that I kind of wanted to draw this to, but doctors' offices. Doctors have, in some ways, doctors could use some help in the doctor's offices. But in your experience, what give me 2 points that doctors bring really quick.
Bedside manner. I mean,
the human connection.
The human connection. You walk in, if you immediately understand that the doctor you were talking to actually cares about you,
mm-hmm.
then you're going to be willing to share more information. You're going to be willing to, have that relationship with the doctor to where they can follow you from one point of a health to the next. It's like Rachel making that connection with her OB now that she's expecting a baby. I mean, she picked this person, she immediately likes this person, and she's going to trust this person to deliver her child. So there's that human connection that you have to make with your physician. So,
all right. So based on what we've said so far, my opinion is that if we leave it to billionaires, they're going to, as Bill Gates said, humans aren't going to have anything to do. Mm-hmm. But I think human art and human connections, which are the two things you mentioned, the strongest in both cases, we should decide what that means. If we start connecting with an AI better than a human, that's a sad testimonial to what it is to be human. But I also think that we have to stop judging the whole AI thing, because again, we should be thinking about what's the world going to look like with AI and what does it mean, and how we need to decide that art is valuable because a human did it, because of the flaws, the human. I mean, that's what makes art. I mean, even that's what makes art important. Even
right.
Humans like Da Vinci had to have a Patreon to buy food. And as beautiful as his art was, but his art was beautiful because we decided it was beautiful, not because something else did.
Right. But Rachel had a good point today when we were talking about this earlier. Rachel's point was human art is very, very, very important. But at some point, you can't afford every single piece of art that you have in your house to be original, to be custom.
You have to decide what you want to spend your money on.
You have to decide what you want to spend your money on.
But you have
and
to be
if AI
careful.
Starts doing everything and humans don't need the jobs, then humans aren't going to have the money.
But then again, the value of the art could go up. I mean, right? Our artists have been fighting this forever. How do we get the value of our art up? We had a kid that was a great artist in an art class at the high school, and he worked as a sack boy in HEB. We helped him get a job at a local T-shirt company because he could hand draw, and we gave him digital tools to train on, which is a big Wacom tablet. We put it in the art class, and the kids were training on how to use it. And because he could use that, he became more valuable to the T-shirt people because they loved his art. But we, just like we did when we decided organic was better, and then we let corporations come in and start to redefine what it was, organic was supposed to help small farmers, small ranchers. It was supposed to keep your food cleaner and all that other stuff. Well, it became such a big industry because all we humans, including you and I, decided we like this organic milk. We like this. You used to make jokes about it. Am I doing something to stunt my kid's growth because he's not getting all those growth hormones that they pump into the cow's milk because we used organic, right?
Yeah.
So, but we decided that this is important because it came from this place. And I think we all have to decide that this is not a problem that AI has caused. This is just AI is an accelerant for a problem. Our healthcare is screwed up because of billionaires, insurance companies, hedge funds, doctors becoming pill dispensing machines instead of real doctors
A-
that I
and
see so
doctors
often.
going, I am sorry, but I worked at a clinic in Bryan College Station back in the day, and they had a
Hmm.
ton of doctors working for them, and the doctors were on salaries, okay? And their salaries were not much more than an engineer, but they went through 12 years
They
of
got to get
school,
paid. They've got to get paid.
you know?
You know what? Either that or pay their school off for them. If you make it
Man,
through medical school, then we're going to
not
reimburse you
just
for the
that.
entire cost.
Not
But
just
then,
that,
of
but I mean
course, they'll raise the cost. But
the
yes,
dedication of putting 12 years into becoming a doctor
and
says something.
a lot of those people you were talking about were military. So,
Yes.
again, one of the things I like about our doctor, and you mentioned earlier, we started
Hmm.
going to, Jack Franklin, Hill Country, Jack and Cody, and all the people down there. We started going there because we were tired of the local, clinics. Scott and White owns all the stuff around here. It's so big, you feel like you're just kind of getting crunched through the machine when you go in. There's no real personal connection. You're getting run in and out. So doctors value add in that world because I do think AI is going to make a huge difference in healthcare. But if they use it as a partner in their assessments, but they still make the human connection, that human connection is valuable enough. I pay a monthly fee beyond my insurance just for the ability to go see the Hill Country.
I
And
will tell you exactly when it stopped for me because we have been going to the Scott and White Clinic here locally for a really long time
yeah.
after they got bought out by Scott and White. When it
Hmm.
stopped for me is when I couldn't call the local receptionist desk to make an appointment.
I know
When
you're
I
getting
had to
routed to
call,
Waco.
when I had to get routed to an appointment center and talk to somebody that did not know me, had no earthly idea, when I needed an appointment, how I needed an appointment, couldn't work me in. That's when I was like, this is no longer personal. Now I need to find a different way. So
And we were
it's
willing
the
to pay more for it,
personal,
which is the
and we
point.
were willing to pay more. So
Of
it's the
course,
personal touch that matters.
then we have to decide as humans that that personal touch is worth paying for, and we have to be able to get a job till we can have the money to pay that extra personal touch. I mean, I guess there is a little bit of, there's a lot of interconnectivity going on. And the last thing with teachers, and I'm gonna wrap on teachers a little bit for this one because I just found this out recently. I didn't know this. That stupid test, teachers don't like teaching the test.
Oh
They say
God,
they don't
no.
like it, they hate it. But we keep electing people like here in Texas that are they're trying to destroy public education, they're trying to cut its funding, they're trying to do all these things, and they are doing it and they're getting elected and teachers are voting for them. The teachers of Texas are one of the largest voting blocks of people if they
Yeah,
vote together.
yeah.
And definitely in Texas, and they proved that back in the 80s when they got rid of a governor they didn't like. So teachers are huge, but they don't vote like a block. Well,
No.
now here in Texas, of course, their best way to get rid of that voting block risk that Mark White found out about back in the 80s was to get the teachers to get rid of them. If you don't have teachers anymore and you've got AIs teaching and you've got guides instead of teachers, that so there's not that connection that they feel anymore, then the
Hmm.
voting block's gone. You have to worry about it anymore. You get rid of all
Yeah.
that anyway. So last point I wanted to make.
Teachers need to unite, and in Texas where we can't, you're a
Can't
Texas
unionize,
can't unionize like that. Yeah.
but you can still
So
vote as a block. So I left the last point for you because you make it all the time.
okay,
The
what is
last
that?
point, thank you, AI,
That's true.
because
It's
this
very true.
conversation wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for AI.
That's
So
true. I
I,
absolutely,
we
absolutely.
wouldn't be so closely looking at what is the human value versus the computer's value or the machine's value or the AI's value or whatever. Again, AI didn't start all these things. They didn't start billionaires, doing all the things in healthcare getting screwed up and standardized testing. All that stuff started independent of it. It's just an accelerant that
Yeah.
is causing this stuff to get worse. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And if we as humans don't decide which pieces we want to reserve for ourselves, It's important to us because we think it's important, not because somebody uploaded a data set and trained a neural network on it.
It's true. It's
Okay,
very
I'm
true.
off. That was my pseudo soapbox.
We are out of time, but real quick, let's talk about what we're going to be doing. Let's see. What are
Busy
we going to
week.
be doing? We
It's
have a busy week. Yes. So
Fried Tech first.
we're
I
doing
think.
a webinar with Fried Tech where we're going to be talking about policy, AI policy and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to be doing Hudson Tillotson University in Austin.
Workforce stuff, I think, in AI.
Talking about the future or the way that students are thinking, the future thinking for students.
Okay.
And then we're doing a SequoiaCon, which is going to be kind of interesting because we're going to do it from our car on the way to San Diego. Because yes, we are driving it because I am a big chicken and I don't want to get on a plane because the last time I got on a plane, it wasn't fun. So we're going to be making a road trip and going to San Diego.
Road trip.
Yeah, quick road trip. And we're going to be at the ASU GSV Air Show for a few days. So we've got a lot going on, but we hope that you guys have a marvelous rest of the week.